killed the market for, of course. So now this had killed the market for, of course.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen who are watching us here on the network. Exactly, is exactly 58 minutes past 3 here in Kampala, Uganda, where we are broadcasting from. It is Wednesday today. Is it Wednesday? Tuesday. Today is a Tuesday. And let me hope everything is moving as you planned it. For those that are watching us from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Our topic of discussion today is about the Western puppets in Africa. Or European puppets in Africa. So, we know that most African leaders, actually almost all of them, they are, of course, these political leaders are puppets. A puppet, it is something, it is like, to me, it's like something or somebody who's working as a representative for another person, or another person's ideologies, and thoughts. So he doesn't, of course, depend on his thoughts, rather the influencer's thoughts in whatever he or she does. So for a long time, African leaders have been influenced and controlled by the Western powers. In compromising their independence and of course serving those foreign interests. These leaders are sometimes, of course, they are actually they are people, they are puppets. They are not even labeled. They are puppets. For instance, Kenyan Pan Africanists. We see that a lot of leaders in Africa serve the interests of the Western powers. However, these days um, we see even other countries trying to influence everything that goes on in Africa rather than the Western powers. But Western powers influence a lot African leaders, and African leaders influence whatever happens in their countries. For example, we have seen in African history, we have seen a lot of presidents in Africa that have been, of course, are named as dictators, tyrants. Um, but in reality, most of these people, they have been for a long time serving the interests. They have been controlled by the Western powers, ideologies, and of course, interests. So when someone becomes a puppet, it is the Western nations to influence the political, economic, and social behaviors of a country. So they influence everything. Let it be in politics, let it be in social life, because there are a lot of things that we can put down that lie under social life in Africa. For example, the education sector is one of the things that follow under the social status of African people. So if the education sector is influenced by the Western world, it means students or like children or kids or anyone that studies for a certain course, anyone that goes through education system that has been influenced by another country or by an individual the education system is going to, of course, to follow the ideologies, to follow the influencers' interests. For a long time, we have been seeing, we know that the entire world is, of course, is grappling with the issue of unemployment. But in Africa, unemployment is an intended thing that has been, of course, created to make Africans poor through the education system. So when we look at the education system that we are having in Africa, this is an influenced education system that doesn't fit to Africa's environment or to African society. This is the education system that teach job seekers, that creates job seekers, rather job creators, due to its theological uh, uh, due to its theological curriculum that we see today. So, so This it doesn't mean that African presidents or law makers in Africa, they are not aware that the education system uh, is, of course, just makes people that, of course, go out of school to look for jobs rather creating jobs. They know. But someone who is behind everything that is planned with the education system, he wants it to be like that. He or she wants the education system in Africa to be like that, to make Africans poor, to make Africans ignorant about everything. That is one way. In Of course, education or social education system has been, of course, manipulated or influenced. When we look at the languages that we speak in Africa, the language, hello, Jibjaba, it's 9 a.m. that side. Oh, here it is 4:06. Let me hope you're doing good, Jibjaba. So when we look at, of course, the languages that we speak in Africa, however much most of the African countries, most especially East Africa, has tried as so much to embrace the Swahili language to be spoken across East African countries. But this is not the official language in Africa that we are using. When you look at most of the African countries, official languages, a language where you want to get an opportunity for a job somewhere, a language we need is it is the Bazungu language. Let it be French, Chinese language, Russian language, English, and more and others. German language, you need this language. It's not because African leaders they are not seeing or they don't know the reality, of course, behind everything that is related to languages and how a country's language, like language system in a country, must be organized or managed. They know, but someone who is influencing, of course, who is influencing the social part of African society doesn't want a native language to be embraced as to be embraced as an official language. And of course, a lot of people have been denied the opportunities to, of course, to job, have been denied the job opportunities due to language differences. We have seen incidences on reality TV shows where people have been, of course, people have been laid off. Sorry, people have been laid off because of the poor articulation of words in these so-called official languages that we know about the French language, um, Chinese language, and many more. Very many people have been denied those employment opportunities due to failure to understand these languages very well. Yet we have our own languages, our native languages that we know better here in Africa. So that is one way or the other. The other social part of it, apart from education, apart from the language, is is about like is about the discrimination of course, in employment opportunities that we are seeing today. A lot of people are unemployed in Africa, not because uh, they lack, of course, competence in what they do. They lack skills, but it's because they have not gone through um, first of all, the education system of course, that is influenced by the Western powers. They have not gone through uh, the steps, the procedures, the true procedures of these so-called um, uh, uh, Western powers. So African leaders, behind, of course, besides everything that, of course, that is happening, besides everything that is Africa is going through. One time I was talking with a border guy who was taking me somewhere. The guy said that Africa can't live without Bazungus. I told him that we can live without Bazungus. He said they can't. Even said he went further and said that if at all those Bazungus decide now and say Museveni can't live anymore, they can overthrow him within minutes. Like Museveni is living on the mercy of the Western powers and other stuff. There are a lot of, however much we have seen a lot of presidents that come out, of course, and deny. I've seen even President Museveni himself, however much now he tries to become a little bit tough about the Western powers. But this is a guy that, of course, that for the recent in the recent years who has been traveling to the Western to the European countries at least twice a year, if not thrice. Do what? Because some of these visits they are not even of course they are not published by the press, neither the some media, neither media houses. But we have been seeing, of course, a lot of African presidents seeking sympathy from Western powers. Reason being, Africa has everything that makes it to be, of course, because these people, whenever they move out of Africa, they say that they have gone to rob funds and develop Africa, which is not true. Whenever they go outside the Africa, they sign treaties, they sign agreements with these, of course, Western leaders or European leaders. They make agreements, and of course, in exchange, they get money. By now, today, when we look at Uganda, Uganda is, of course, it is in the process of processing petroleum. For a long time, we have been importing, besides Uganda being a landlocked country, we have very many landlocked African countries. But Uganda has been importing, of course, petroleum products for a long time. But when we look at money that has been Uganda has been spending on importing these petroleum products, it is a little. It is of course much money that has been that it has been investing in this for a long time. But when you compare to the money that has been used in transportation stuff, this money can build. Actually, they're just waking up now to start mining, to start, of course, mining. We are just, the government of Uganda is just waking up now to mine our own oil, crude oil here in Uganda. But if at all African countries can create, African presidents can, of course, guide in the managing and creation of industries that are ready to, of course, to mine our own resources here in Africa, I think Africa can be a terrible place, a terrible place here on planet Earth. But we allow these people that, of course, that these African leaders sign agreements with these people. These people come pick our minerals here. Let it be gold, let it be iron, let it be coal, let it be uranium, let it be whatever mineral. They create small industries within those mining areas. After mining, they refine those minerals and take those minerals. They don't even help Africans, but rather we import products from those countries to Africa that have been made out of our minerals that have been picked from here of course, in a scamming way. There is a slogan in Uganda that it is improper to exchange a goat for a rabbit. But these most of these, of course, European leaders, they exchange African minerals for rabbits. They exchange our gold here from Africa for rabbits. Because of the puppet leaders that we are having, they can't study the situation Africa is going through. They can't understand African society. Rather, they embrace Western kind of ideologies here to rule African societies. And by the way, if at all we see, I was like, there is a way I was seeing President Ruto of Kenya when he was convincing Kenyans the other year when he was in 2022 when he was convincing Kenyans about what he's going to do or what thoughts. And by the way, this guy was in government as a vice president, so he knew everything that the country was going through at that time. So he was convincing Kenyans, I'm a hustler, I'm with you. Because most of these African countries, uh, the biggest, uh, the biggest number of African countries, the youths, they're unemployed. Most of the youths, they are unemployed. And even the rich people what we call rich people that we are having in Africa today, or in African society. These are people that have actually there are like three categories of people that we have, rich people that we have in Africa. And the factors that made them rich, they are also they're they're like three to four factors. One of them, the rich people we have, they might have inherited that richness, that those riches or wealth. And that is the small group of people that we have in Africa. Another group of rich people that we are having in Africa, maybe even the entire world, but specifically I'm speaking for Africa. These are people that are in government positions. That's why very many Africans are fighting to, of course, to go in, like to join the government or government payroll, let it be in school staff. They're fighting hard. Everyone in Africa fights to work for a government, to get that money from the government. It's not too much, but they fight to get that money. And when it comes to politicians, it is another case. Very many people are fighting so hard to become politicians in Africa because they know politics is all about money in Africa. It's not all about service like like other countries or other continents. It is about money. That's why even the junta governments that we have seen, like Burkina Faso, Mali, stuff, those countries that have, of course, had occurring coups, the junta governments have failed to transit the governance to to the they are just stabilizing, they are just consolidating power. They are consolidating themselves into power in those countries because politics is about money. Politics is about money in Africa. So the first category I talked about, these are people that are some people that are rich in Africa. These are people that have inherited those riches. That's all. The second category, the politicians, because politics is money in Africa. So if you talk about politics, you're talking about money. I was like, why is that most people are fighting so hard to become politicians in Africa? Someone invests almost his life into political issues in Africa. It is because politics is money in Africa. It's not all about service. So one fights hard. He is like, as long as I get into power, everything will be settled. And that is Africa. So another group of people, these are thieves. And even most politicians, we see that they follow under thieves. Of course, even the president staff, they follow under thieves. Those are the three categories of people that we have that are rich in Africa, depending. So, and it is a small group of number of people that we are having that are rich. So most people, they are swimming into poverty. So why could we be seeing a rich continent in minerals like Africa to be swimming in poverty? Africa is going through poverty. That is the reality. Africa is going through serious poverty. A lot of African people are swimming into serious poverty. The other time I was seeing Sudan, how of course how I was seeing how Sudanese people are dying of hunger. However much Sudan is, of course, has the desert part of it has some desert part of it, but we couldn't be expecting African people, let it be those people that are, of course, that are having that part of the desert part of Africa. The desert part of we couldn't be experiencing such kind of poverty that we are seeing amongst African people that we're seeing today. So I was seeing Sudanese there because of their dying because of hunger. People are not having what to eat. But sometimes these, of course, European leaders or European powers or Western powers, when they were conquering Africa, actually immediately after colonization, we know colonization ended. Actually, it's like real or dialect colonialism. Started ending towards. It started ending towards after immediately after the end of the Second World War in 1945. So that's how we started seeing African countries struggling to get independence. But at the end of the Second World War in 1945, the so the so-called, of course, Western powers or European powers, they sat down and created the United Nations. The United Nations, it has chambers. Spanish what, United Nations for human rights, United Nations stuff what and what, and other issues like the World Food Program. So they knew that actually they were creating these things not to combat the issues that are affecting the world, but rather they were planning for Africa. Because countries that are stricken by war, they normally face, of course, hunger. Countries that are stricken by war, we normally see a lot of instabilities and insecurities in these countries. You'll see United Nations go to those countries. The other time, Maria was talking about how a United Nations car, for of course, had an accident. It had a crash, and gold crystals were falling out of this car. This is the United Nations that we are seeing in Congo. So for them, they go to a place where they expect to, of course, to explore, to exploit minerals. Even those countries that, of course, that are, because we have seen a lot of countries that have been stricken by hunger, and of course, World Food Programs and United Nations, they don't respond. But if you see them somewhere, it means there is something behind, bigger than the food they are giving you, and they want you to be in that suffering life, so that you can't. Instead of thinking of what is going on in a country, you think about what to eat. And this is, of course, how most of the Africans, of course, have a perspective about everything. Africans, I'm sorry to say this, Africans think of what they are going to eat tomorrow. They will never, they will never and never think about how how minerals are being exploited in Congo, how um, they will never think about how, of course, a lot of things are happening in the country. However, this time round, this time round, a lot of people in Africa waking up, and these are the youths. They are waking up to see every shade, every pasasido, every kind of course, impropriety that are going on in countries. That's why we see youths, of course, waking up in Kenya to riot because of the financial bill. African leaders, they know, all African puppets, they know that the education system that we are having in Africa, it doesn't provide it doesn't provide enough understanding or enough, of course, necessity that is needed for our own people. Or it doesn't give that right information for people to interpret everything that the government does. I guess in Kenya. So, I guess in point in Kenya, I don't think Ruto could expect that the youths in Kenya could interpret the financial bill. Whenever budgets are read in African countries, like the governments just read them for the essence of the few elites that are around them, because they interpret everything. But an average person in an in an African country, if at all we are to move on the streets and you ask someone about the budget of the country, someone will, of course, will not give you. Someone will tell you, I don't understand anything about the budget. I don't know about anything about the budget. Now youths are waking up to understand this. So African leaders, they know, they will teach you about looking for job, and they will not teach you about how to interpret, about how to understand how money circulates within different government sectors. And that's why, of course, a lot of money has been embezzled in government, of course, in government institutions and government ministries, because they think people don't understand how these things run, how this money is distributed, how much money is distributed. So, and this, of course, this is what the European countries, of course, want Africa to be. They want Africa to be in that, of course, in that comfortability, never to mind about, of course, what goes around in a country, what the country goes. They don't mind whether the people understand what goes on in the country. So when we look at, of course, how, of course, Western or European countries have influenced decisions of political decisions in African countries. And by the way, this should be as a warning to different African leaders. They could, they should understand this, because a lot of Africans, they are now waking up to see this. I was seeing, of course, in Burkina Faso, where a coup attempt was, of course, carried out to, of course, to end the regime, or to end the junta government of Ibrahim Traore. It's because people are unsatisfied. This guy showed, of course, Russian side immediately after capturing, after, of course, after staging a coup. And the people have known, even up to now, this is the guy, of course, that extended the transit to see, he said that they could transit the government to a civilian kind of course, leadership in 5 years to come. People are seeing this and people are unsatisfied about this. Yet we see Russians, of course, in Burkina Faso, they are mining. We see mining areas. They don't have very many actually mining areas, but the mining areas in Burkina Faso, they are guarded by the Russians. We see Russian military in Burkina Faso, but Burkina Faso has not got that change people expected. It is the same thing with Kenya. A lot of Kenyans trusted by the way Ruto, because they thought he's going to understand what people were going through, the post-COVID period, what people were going through. So they thought, people thought that this guy is going to address these issues. Besides that, Kenya has been experiencing floods in the last month. And the other month, starting with March, Kenya has been experiencing floods. A lot of people's homes have been swept away in Kenya. Nothing has been done. Now you bring, or actually, you impose a lot of taxes on essential products, including food. Doesn't make sense. And that's why in Burkina Faso there was, of course, in in a week ago, there was a tried attempt to, of course, to assassinate, or it was a tried coup, of course, in Burkina Faso against Ibrahim Traore, because people have not experienced change ever since this guy came into power. They have not seen any change. So people are looking for change in Africa because they have experienced a lot, and people are understanding who, of course, benefits in this. People are now getting to understand who benefits in this. We have seen African countries actually when the Russian Ukrainian war had just started, we saw a lot of African countries, African leaders coming out to say, um, uh, for me, I support Russia. For me, I'm team Ukraine. For me, I'm team Russia. So that showed something, that there is someone who supports, or there is someone who is behind everything that is done in those respective countries. Amongst these, Europe, amongst these, of course, African puppets. So politically, we see that when we look at the political system in African countries, actually there is something for me I don't believe in, which I'm seeing that most African countries, most African presidents and African countries are getting adopted to, and um, this is the voting. Like if I told you you're Ugandan, you're in USA, you're confirmed a Ugandan citizen in USA, you're able to vote at the Ugandan embassy in USA. So I don't know whether, like, If I told you vote for the other person, these votes are counted well. And actually, I think that's how these people, of course, rig elections. This is how these people, of course, rig election, because you can't tell me that you're going to vote at the embassy of Uganda in Germany. Your Germans in your Ugandan citizens in Germany, and you're going to vote from German at the Ugandan embassy in Germany. I guess that's how these people, because they will tell you that we have over 1 million voters in USA. Frozen like popsicle, like a popsicle.
Sorry about that. Our internet actually. Uh, I guess that's why Jibjaba said that you have frozen. Well, uh, number 12 does ending that show. um, Innocent has elaborated quite uh, a lot, and he has explored majorly the political part of all political leaders and how they are being influenced and how this has been so visible in Africa. Really, we know that Western domination or imperialism and colonialism has historically impacted Africa's development and resources. We know that we have, of course, um, we have seen people try to, of course, have part in the so-called struggle for Africa's independence, but the truth still remains that Africa is still indirectly being colonized. So apart from the direct colonial rule, where most of these stories fall, of us seeing the 100% existence, visual existence of the Bazungu, of the Western people, will see black faces into power, black faces with Western minds, black faces with colonized minds, black faces, um, and we go for those faces rather than the mind. And this is the problem most of us are facing now. Um, I recall Innocent to say that the Kenyans trusted Ruto a lot, and he has been always talking about the hustler slogan that apparently a lot of people fell for, because Africa is a hustle, and the 99.9% of the people in Africa are really hustlers. A hustler is someone who has to struggle to make ends meet. And for someone to come out and start addressing the issues that you know, there's someone trying to explain that I grew up in the gutter. This is the very tactic that was being used here in Uganda by Bobi Wine. And actually, this is how Bobi Wine gained a lot of influence and the few supporters, or to be liked by majority of the youth, more especially in the central part of Uganda and the capital, Kampala. Um, we know that when he was coming into, of course, uh, a presidency or candidature, campaigns and all that. He's first of all, he realized that a lot of the hustlers, what matters to the hustler is something very small. And I remember what made him go extremely viral all over different social media platforms and other mainstreams, um, was when he, of course, demonstrated against the social media tax. The social media tax that only costed 200 Ugandan shillings, something that uh, the biggest population would really afford. I'm not like trying to say it is okay to put this, but now this is very important in the eyes of the hustler, rather than increasing the prices of electricity. Now I'm trying to give you that picture. You increase the prices of electricity, all right, people don't really care about that. Okay. A lot of people will complain about majorly the people who can complain about electricity prices are going to be the people who are in the business. These are people who need big works to run their businesses, companies, industries, big business officials, all that. Those are the ones who are going to feel the pain of the increase of electricity bill or the cost of electricity, right? Now, I'm trying to see now. We may look at something like electricity, and it is something that is so important. It runs our hospitals, it runs our operation theaters, it runs apparently most of the things. Okay. Um. Now, the majority of people don't know that this is important. Now, this is the Africa we are talking about. But the moment you wake up one time and even put a small tax on probably the data, you're going to see a problem, because these people really don't understand how the matrix land. Now, this is a question that a lot of Kenyans were asking themselves. This is impossible for the young people to stand and demonstrate about this thing. They have no knowledge. This is why everyone was saying a lot of young people in Kenya don't have knowledge about this bill. They would not be demonstrating unless there is someone who has fueled their demonstration, and their, has fueled them to act the way they are acting. So I'm giving you that picture now. There are a lot of things that are actually going on. Okay, so when we saw Bobby Wine down in Uganda, Bobby Wine became so prominent. The moment he started demonstrating, they should remove the Facebook tax, they should remove the social media tax. We don't want to see no tax and all that. And um, a lot of people fell in love with him just because of that. He did not talk about the most vital or the most important things, because we can wake up one time and probably Meta decide to say, I'm removing this, I'm scrapping this away from all websites, I'm not running this anymore, and nobody's gonna die. We can wake up one time and someone says we don't want to see no TikTok, we don't want to see no Twitter, and people are not really gonna die about it. But if you wake up one time and the equipment in the hospitals are not running, do you know how many people are going to lose their lives? But why is it important for people to have these small, tiny things? This is the mindset. These are the things we know. This is where we get comfort. These are the things we know. We don't know any other thing apart from this. And that's why it is possible for other people to think the biggest population of African youths don't really understand how the matrix works. All right. So, you see, when we had presidents, okay, when we had Ruto during those days of his campaigns, he painted that picture that I understand your pain. I come from where you've been, from where you were. I've never been there, and I understand the struggle. Now, this is the same matrix Bob Wine was using. Bob Wine, by the way, for the record, he never grew up in a poor family. Bob Wine's father was a politician. Bob Wine's father was one of the richest people in town. Bob Wine's father still is still in records, political records of Africa, under his political umbrella. All right, and for sure, I think it is DP or something. And his political party, Bob Wine's father was, and I don't know. I guess DP. And I don't know those old political parties that nowadays I don't see a lot of people concentrate on. But he was a politician. He did not grow up in. He grew up in the city. That is one. He did not grow up sleeping on the streets like Al Jazeera, BBC, and these other, of course, mainstream show. A man from the ghetto, a poor man who has been hiding. There is a way they label him that you tend to call him. It's what he's representing. A man who grew up from the ghetto, the streets of Kampala. He came from the gutters and whatever and whatever. This is the same story that was painted with Ruto, and this enabled Ruto, by the way, to win these elections. And now, there he is. Kenya is where it is right now. Okay. So when they painted that, a lot of people who didn't really know, because everyone can assume, everyone can get to know things if you tell them. If I tell you I live in the ghetto, it is me telling you I live in the ghetto and all that. A lot of people will believe. Now, living in the ghetto and you living as a ghetto person is one different thing. First of all, but when since his childhood, he has been a drug dealer. And drugs have money. Drug dealers have money. He has been running different cartel groups. He was a cartel leader. He was running different groups in different ghettos all over Uganda and outside Uganda, by the way. He was heading different. He was a cartel, and he had the money, and he had all the drugs. And people only think this was only within Uganda, but it was expanding beyond the borders. And this guy really had money. And all I know, and I know for sure, he was only using young street boys, the so called ghetto boys, the ghetto children, right? So, for you using ghetto children to run your cartel things does not mean that you're somebody who is in a ghetto. Okay. So I think, like I was saying, we have that mentality. We look at the other part, and the leaders who are coming to, of course, represent us, understand where we focus. We usually focus on minor things. And to the surprise, like I said, Kenyan people have surprised the Kenyan leadership by demonstrating after the increased taxes or the budget was read. They do not, and this is why a lot of them could not believe that people are actually demonstrating. So you think you talk about the budget, and apparently people shouldn't really understand about the budget. People are waking up to understand and to follow what is going on in their countries. For people to say that these people are just being fueled, people would not be demonstrating because they understanding nothing. They understand nothing. That means that shows how people or how our leaders think that we are so stupid and probably do not see and blind to see the truth. So we've had those leaders, and I was said this a little back on what INNOSSETU was saying about the education system. The African's education system, yes, has never trained an African to employ themselves. This system has trained us to only be humble and obedient to the rule of the Western. This system has designed us that if you don't represent yourself as in an image of those in the Western world, you are not alike. This system has designed us that if you do not understand the way, or if you don't change your mind to think like the way the Western people think, you are definitely a fool. The education system that also teaches things that do not actually benefit the Africans. You take a lot of time in school studying about algebra. You take a lot of time studying about a lot of things that actually cannot even help you here in Africa, and you're not going to get a job in the US or Europe or wherever. There is little about Africa that is taught in schools, both historically and in other spheres. And this is why, at times, there are little people in Africa. There are few people in Africa who know what Africa really is. And this has got nothing to do with how many degrees you have, because even the people who have many of them have little knowledge about this. And this is where the problem comes. In a nutshell, this entire system trains the Africans to reject who they are and embrace who they are not. This entire system trains Africans to appreciate something they are not, to appreciate the other thing, to compare, to, to compare. Chip, Chip, how can you ask such a question? What do you mean? Uh-huh. Are you sure? It was our internet that had that issue. So, if you look at all the aspects, really, and then we just play, and then when you look at when we focus on education system is where everything goes wrong, because they're not going to wake up and then we say we have lawmakers when the lawmakers are studying somebody else's education type. You cannot talk about the only thing that might be similar probably is medicine, because when it comes to life is saving life. Kalas. But don't slap my hand. So when it comes to that, and we cannot be talking about the policing, we cannot talk about the military, all these or most of the agendas which these people follow are those that they adapted. I usually talk about the policing, except that recently Uganda was trying to change. I remember, unfortunately, that man who was trying to change the Uganda police was killed. And I think he was killed because of that change. He wanted to bring within the government or the police system. Because for him, he had reduced this to what they call community policing. And this was really going on smoothly, and where the local people were working hand in hand with the police to make sure that they meet the major goal of protecting the people and their property. But it was really working. We saw this work all over. But when, of course, you introduce this kind of system where people are supposed to work with the police and, of course, to reach to a major goal. As a person, protect your property. The police helps you do that. It was a good idea, really. Unfortunately, this particular guy was murdered, I think, by his fellow officials, probably who felt um, They cannot comply with, of course, the plans they had brought. And unfortunately, may he so rest in peace. So, but so after that, police went back to that colonial kind of system. When you look at when we look at the entire police, there are of course their shields, the guards, uh, and all that. You realize that this is a system that even they use in Europe, they use uh, in the US and other countries. Mm, yesterday we were here discussing with the INNOSSETU, and then he said that most of the uniforms that we see both, more especially in East Africa, the uniforms are the same. So we were like, yeah, because these uniforms were given to them by the colonizers. And if you look at the uniforms in the French colonized, of course, countries, you will also see that the uniforms are a little bit similar. And you can understand who runs the combat, who runs the entire. But we see that other African leaders are trying so very much to change the military system in Africa, but still, we cannot forget the major elements that can still be identified in this. General Mosquito, thank you for joining our live. He says, hello guys, how is it going today? We are fine, smooth. We hope you're doing good anyway. Today is a Tuesday. I hope you're from jogging. Oh, are you in bed? Maybe you're sleeping. Oh, maybe you are lying in bed and not sleeping unless you're typing in your dream. But yeah, because your time difference not the same with that of those guys in the US. So yeah, so like I was saying, so when you look at most of the systems, like I say, a lot of Africans celebrated independence, but we still have what we call the indirect rule, and that's why you see that a lot of the African leaders are actually influenced by the Western people. Yeah, it is so unfortunate that at times, apart from apart from coups or hijacking power forcefully, which of course still those who are hijacking power are still being influenced by the Western world, because you need that support for you to be able to take over. We when Ibrahim Traore became the president, I remember, guys, I told you that we are so very excited to see Ibrahim Traore take position and, of course, take over power because Burkina Faso had gone through a lot. I remember it was here on Blackwood Fair when I say that, but don't be so very much surprised to see that he's not doing any different or any better than these other leaders. It is not an easy thing for someone to, of course, to overthrow the government with just other people within the same countries. There is always a certain power behind most of these coups. And at times, for us, we always celebrate, all right? We are happy because something has gone bad. There is always something that is coming. Ibrahim Traore, in his past speeches, he made it clear that he doesn't want to have anything to do with the Western or European influence in Burkina Faso. But I think he was only focusing on France, but embracing other countries, which is still the same, right? Um, I was expecting, of course, to see a lot of difference, but I cannot say because I may say that but when it's still early, because it is not that you come into power and the next day you change a lot of things, because probably maybe there has been a lot of bullshit going on that he still has to make sure that he corrects before his country shines. But the fact that he's still having dealings with Russia and other countries is a little bit absurd, because you cannot deny the fact that these people are still going to use him, of course, to do exactly what we are trying to avoid. We have seen a lot of people coming into contests, and of course wanting to stand in, of course wanting to be presidents of specific African countries. But you can realize we have got a lot of people who have the mind. If you listen to their, if you listen to their campaigns, if you follow their agendas, if you listen to their speeches, you definitely understand that this person has something strong. And these people, unfortunately, are not even prominent. These people are even are hardly heard of. These people are people that people don't even know they existed, because they do not have that other influence that is driving their ambition. And always Africans should put a question whenever you see someone who has a lot of or someone who has attracted a lot of attention, too much attention from all over. There is usually a reason why. We have had a lot of people who are willing to change Africa, but the fact that most Africans really understand how does the person who is going to bring change look like? What is the mindset of this person who is going to bring change? What should I look at if I'm to elect or if I'm to vote for the right leader? These are the things now, like I was trying to say. We don't really, most of us in Africa, we don't really care about the major important things. I told you about how people can demonstrate when there is a tax on something that is something that me, I may not look at. Okay, because and they don't demonstrate when they need to. And like I said, this is why in Kenya people were denying Lala. How these people are being there is someone fueling their demonstrations and all that, because they think the people in Africa don't understand. There is no way people can be demonstrating. Now, this is what analysts were saying on different Kenyan TVs. There is no way people can be demonstrating about this. They have little knowledge about the budget. They don't really understand how this works. I mean, this is not, you understand? Because most of the time, people will do things, people will be hit by things that you will think, why are they even doing that? But when they focus on the bigger things, Africans will turn away. I gave you the example of how Bobby Wine became so prominent. He just went ahead and demonstrated. Why are they putting taxes on social media? And that was Facebook. Actually, it was the entire data. You are supposed to subscribe and also pay a monthly tax, which is 200 Ugandan shillings. But at the same time, we had our electricity being taxed higher. They did not demonstrate about electricity, because for them they don't really care. What do they use the electricity for apart from the bulbs lighter? But a lot of people who demonstrate about the electricity would be people who have big companies, factories, running big businesses. These are the people who would understand what it means. But the local people were caring about the Facebook, all right? They did not think about the electricity that runs the machines and the operation theaters. They did not think about the electricity that runs different things that make it possible for them to live and also have access to different things. No, all they wanted was for them to have access to their Facebook pages and be able to have data on their phones. Now, this is what Bobi Wine did. He did not talk about important things. This is what he spoke about. He became so prominent. Everybody started loving him. You understand our pain. Which one is really your pain? We understand, you understand. The guy understands our pain. He understands how it's important for us to have this data. He really understands how we cannot afford. But you're still paying the electricity highly. But you're still paying other things that even shouldn't be taxed. other things that are extremely important. Now he knows the kind of people who are in Africa. Now this is Africa. All right. We always focus. Now, people went ahead, voted for Ruto. It is okay for you to vote Ruto, fine. If at all you feel like he's someone, but not for the I'm a hustler slogan. That shouldn't be the reason why you're loving somebody. That shouldn't be the reason why you want to vote for someone. I'm a hustler. It's just the hustler as I am. We wake up in the morning to hustle. Where is that dude hustling from? He has mansions. He has been in the government for a long time. And you're saying, huh? He's a hustler. Which hustler? Has he ever slept on an empty stomach? Has he? And then people go ahead like in Uganda, oh, Bobby Wine, he's just as poor as we are. Dude has never been poor, not even for a single day. He has been a cartel leader, running different cartels all over East Africa. The guy has an entire beach. He has an entire estate. He runs different businesses. And everybody says because he sees from the ghetto. He was just somebody who was using young ghetto children, orphans who are not going to be questioned. Why are you not back home at this time? And he sends them to run his drugs all over the country. People don't see this. It's not important. Now, this is the problem that a lot of us have. And this is why it is very easy for us to keep on having puppets, year in, year out. Year in, year out, Africa is going to be having puppets until we change our mindsets towards the people who are convincing us. Jim Jones says that outside agitators, the establishment uses this propaganda in the US. Nabama pulled that as his persona. Nobama pulled that as his persona. Yeah, I guess he did that. Yeah. Atoba Muduga. Black man, he understands our pain and all that. A lot of stories and a lot of people really celebrated when Obama won the elections and all that. So you can see how politics, though, is like a game of the mind or a mind game. I think we should understand, because you want to choose or you want to elect or you want to vote for someone probably out of sympathy. But the world is not going to be sorry for you. Hope and change, baby. Hope and change. You understand? Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Nobody's going to understand what you're going through. The moment this, because now when was Ruto a hustler? No, when was Ruto a hustler? And when was Bob Wine poor? The guy grew up from a political family. He grew up from an established family. He never slept on the streets even for one. Other people have never even had houses in their homes. He was sleeping in houses and fine. And because he used the word ghetto, when you you come to Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, and these other people, they represent him like someone who came from the gutters of Uganda. I'm a young youth from the ghettos, a young youth from the gutters. They made even a fake documentary, fake story. He came from the ghettos to the top. He wants to lead his country because he has experienced. What has he experienced? Do they even know what it means to go to bed on an empty stomach? They even know what it means for you to hustle to make sure you find. He even studied in one of the best schools in the country. And then you want to tell me about you being a hustler, how in a ghetto, the BBC and your bullshit. I don't know. I really get pissed off at times when people say things they don't even understand, and you want the entire world to believe your false stories. And they paint him like somebody you could imagine if you look at his. Mm, you would imagine a guy sleeping in the gutters and being washed by sewage, eating at the dustbin. This is what comes in the mind of everybody who supports this dude. And then everybody's like, yo, so he had to hustle through. And now he's coming as a president. The guy never even, I don't, because he comes from a well-to-do family. All his brothers, if at all we are to count, if at all we are to start counting people who are wealth, his family cannot be skipped. His brothers, his elder brothers, his young brothers, all these people cannot be skipped. And if we are told to look at how these people have gotten money, a lot of young orphans have lost their lives through this game of theirs. But again, the world doesn't know this. There's no one who pictures this. It is different for you to be someone sleeping in the ghetto and someone controlling the ghettos. Those are two different things. You're not a ghetto person controlling the ghettos, deciding what these little people, I mean, you are recruiting young people to run your drugs all over. No. And then we see these all the same particular group. Oh, we are human rights activists. We are fighting for human rights. And you are fighting for whose human rights? You're fighting for who's Chief Java says that type of person would never get near the presidency. A poor, humble, poor person. Exactly. Never. After you have got a lot of people who have missions, ambition, but the world does not see them. Not even their country does. They don't have the money to spread around. They don't have people to facilitate them because they don't have connection with the Western world. The ambition mission that INNOSSETU usually tells you guys about, the one that Keith loves to talk about, the popcorn system, the popcorn thing. The person who brought this ambition mission was a female United States America representative, and she was collaborating with Bobby Wine when he was even still an artist. And he had to register all these other artists. And they joined this popcorn thing. And they were taking this to different schools. Because for him, he knows how to deal with young people. He has been dealing with young African children, more especially Ugandans. Joby says they are killing people. Sorry. Sorry to hear about that, Joby. Just stay safe, guys. I don't know what to say, but this is Africa. And yeah, if at all, I don't know, I don't want to sound so selfish, but if this is going to bring change and something better, I think maybe it's the right thing for people to demand for their rights and what they I don't know what I'm saying, because at times these are people, these are humans who are losing their lives that we are putting at the line. Sorry about that, Joby. Just stay safe, guys, and I don't know. I cannot say stay away because I'm not someone who stays away from such kind of things. I love to see. I love to witness chaos. That's the bad thing about me. I don't know. I remember when bullets are being shared, other people are running away from. When other people are running away, from the scene, I'm running towards the scene to see what exactly is going on. And so I'm not I will not be that good position to tell you to stay away, because I wouldn't. But uh, sorry about what is going on in Kenya. Uh, it's so unfortunate that there is chaos with our brothers and sisters over there. But you should know that we are together in this, and we feel what you're going through, really. And we hope for the best, and maybe this ends soon, and we don't lose a lot of young people in the due course of this struggle. Ah, this is Africa, and mm, oh, sorry, that's bad news, really. So, oh, in Africa, you rather start killing people than to, because what is it about? Why don't you just go and change? Just get the parliament to sit and discuss. Okay, get the parliament to sit and discuss about these things. Let the people know. But now you're trying to force whatever it is. You're trying to fight, the violence by violence, which is actually not what these people want. This is not why people are fighting. This is not why, Kenyans are out there rioting. They need an answer. And it's just a simple answer. I don't know why people, but because, like we said, these people make these laws when they are being pushed. And the people who push them to do such kind of things actually do not really care whether the entire Nairobi, the entire population in Nairobi is killed. What they care about is making sure that their, of course, aims are met. Okay. This is so absurd. Sorry. Uh, I don't know what to say now. My mind is all over the place now. I'm thinking about Kenya and what's going on. And I'm being diverted a little bit. But these are the things that we have actually been talking about. Cause as a leader, it is very important, and for your people to be safe. Okay, as someone who supports, if at all you have that patriotic love, I don't know, maybe I'm a woman or stuff, but I don't know. But um as a leader, even a bloodshed of your own people would pain you to death. It would hurt your spirit. I don't know how comfortable it is, and I don't know how it is possible for these people to be so comfortable when the people they claim they came into power to protect are actually dying. All right, and it is the people who are supposed to protect them that are actually killing them. What is it about you sitting the parliament down and talking to your people and letting them know? I bet if you have had a presidential speech or press conference, for the Kenyans to understand what the president feels about this particular thing. I bet if that has happened. And but like we said, we have a lot of people here in Africa. Our leaders are being influenced by other people. Their agendas must come through. Hook or crook, whether the entire Africa is perishing, whether people are dying, their agenda must come through. And at times, like I said, we neglect the big things. I was giving you an example. People know that Africans neglect the major things because most of them feel like they don't benefit from these big economical issues. They don't even understand that term and that language over there. But from the big economical problems comes the small ones. And I guess this has been a surprise because for a long time Africans have not been minding about these other important issues. You understand? So they know how to play with the minds of the Africans in Africa. They know how to play with the mind. You talk about something, and people know that the moment we impose, let's assume that we are imposing. I gave you the example of electricity because, first of all, electricity is one of the resources that helps a lot of things to run. Without power generation, we may not be able to have a lot of things. In fact, 99% of the economy being run. All right. So we need the electricity now. Whenever they pike on this and the fuel, those two things are very important. And the fuel, because from the fuel, people are going to be having, people are going to be able to transport their goods from one place to another, from the borders to another border. People will be able to transport their products from the farm to the major markets using fuel. Now, when you hike the price of fuel, really, definitely every commodity is going to hike because fuel transports all the major commodities that we see people use. Now, I don't know why the Kenyans thought that people don't really understand how this is run. So why are they demonstrating? They don't even understand the big economical problem. People are waking up to realize. People are waking up to see what is going on. And even if we have been given this doctrination system, in this education system that does not allow us to think the way we should be thinking, I think a lot of people are waking up to understand this matrix. And it's going to be a surprise to the majority of whoever thinks is going to be able to run Africa. Let me sit right behind here a little bit. So, so there is a lot that actually is going on. And people now that Kenya is demonstrating about this, we expect to see the leaders, or let me call them the politicians they are, taking action rather than killing people. Okay? Take action, address the issue. And I know, there is some, there are always reasons why these people put higher taxes on such kind of products or such kind of things because they want to meet with the debt they have. They want to meet with the different demands. In Africa, people just wake up. This is not how the budget even should be read. You just wake up and then start telling people the budget of today, we are putting a certain amount of money on tourism. You're just letting us assume this money. We are putting this amount of money on this. We are putting taxes on this item. You are not explaining to people why. Are we not supposed to have a full report on whatever it is? What is the use of these economists in the government? What is the use of these financialists in the government? What is the use of the financial, ministers in the government? Did they study the role they are playing? So you just wake up and then start claiming we are doing this on tourism. We are putting this, we are hiking prices on this. Let people know why you are hiking the prices. You'll find that they are hiking prices for other people not to be able to have access to bread, just for these people to have new cars that are going to be transporting them all over Nairobi. You are hiking prices on our food because you just have you want these people to have mansions. Is that really fair? I believe if we have people explaining to us the reasons why we have such kind of things, people would really understand. Who wouldn't understand something that is benefiting the country? Who would not understand something that is benefiting them? But this issue of making, even we are putting a certain amount on building roads, the roads we don't even see. The only thing we hear about is Chinese are taking contracts to build roads on loans, and the budgets are reading money. The budgets are reading that we have put this amount of money on this kind of project, and yet we still see the loans and the cash. Two things cannot be together. You cannot talk about the country investing in cash and then the next time you are seeing the same country is having loan towards something it's promised to have covered during the bill. So I think these are the issues. Now the situation in Kenya would be something that was to be easily solved. To eat, people are hungry, but this shows that people don't really care what is going on. First of all, the highest population of people in Africa are unemployed. Now, from unemployment, you start hiking the food prices. On top of unemployment, what is it? What would they expect people to do? You know, at times we know very well that when it comes to Africa's rule or the leaders we have, like we were saying before, these are not people who are here to represent us. They don't really care. This is why we have leaders and their families being the richest. And though they don't want to record that, because when you're trying to mention the richest people, you will never see a president among them. When you're trying to record the richest person in a particular country, a president will not be among them. They want us to see the wealth, but we know they are. So usually it is for the country and your stomach or in your family. And this is what Africa has been doing throughout. We have not seen leaders sacrificing, apart from a few, like Magufuli, you know, like Thomas Sankara, like those other leaders who have really struggled to make sure that they change. It is usually for their families. As long as their families can sleep well, they don't really care what is happening outside in the neighborhood. These are the challenges Africa is really going through. So I really feel pain, and my heart aches for what is going on in Nairobi right now. I hope this ends soon and we don't lose many lives, more especially the young people, because we have realized that there are lots of young people involved in this. It is a pity and a sad situation, despite the fact that we are trying so hard to bring change. It shouldn't be this kind of change where a lot of people are going to lose their lives. All right, it should be a change where our leaders listen and take action, where people sit for the betterment of everyone living in the country or the nation, where our leaders show that they are indeed our leaders and parents who care about our feelings, our needs, and our desires, and make home a home. Africa is turning into something else. It is no longer a home, because if you cannot be comfortable, how can that be home? Home is where you find peace. Do we have peace anymore? So I think this our leaders really have to understand that before even you talk about you wanting to come in power, are the people peaceful? Are you going to give them the peace they need? Because this is the most important thing. With the peace comes good economy. With the peace comes development. With the peace comes good trade. With the peace comes beautiful hospitals. With the peace comes everything that, of course, people need for the smooth running of their day-to-day life. Now, if you are somebody who wants to come as a leader and you don't address these issues, but the issue you see as important is visiting Haiti, taking your offices in Haiti, trying to, of course, you claim protect Haiti, and whatever it is. Hello, is it? How many Americans even voted for Ruth? Why do people want to give the recognition to other people who don't even deserve? The deals he has been making, if actually you are able to move and some, I don't know that he was lobbying, like they always claim the president has gone to lob. And I watched a certain video where a certain white woman was saying, Kenya should celebrate because the United States of America and the State House hardly invite African leaders. Kenya should celebrate the fact that Ruto was invited by America. Are we, so this Mzungu woman really, you know, when I watched this video, I felt like I should punch somebody. Fortunately, Innocent wasn't close to me. Because how can you, like, seriously, that Kenya should celebrate? Because the United States doesn't invite. So what the fuck? You invite, so what? So what? So there is still that inferiority. The people want. I was watching this video and getting pissed and looking at this old white woman and saying, how stupid you are. Hmm? But anyway, and there is no way they would invite even Ruto for no reason. There's something this cheaper point of Uganda. There's something when Bob Wine was invited by some big people in the state, Bill Gates and some other rich guys. And then he was, and then all stupid Ugandans were yelling on top of their voices, our man has been called by Bill Gates. Our man has been called by rich people. Our man has been called by. And I was looking at them and looking at the fools. Like, do you think these people are going to call you for no reason? These are business people. Every discussion is about business. They will even be selling Africans in their own houses and they don't know their property to stop other people. You know, you're working freely, reluctantly all over Kampala and you don't know you are property of Bill Gates. Somebody sold you already and you don't know. And mothers be pregnant having their babies, they don't know the kids they are producing are going to be property. And what and making everything worse is that we are always celebrating predicaments. We are always praising the downfalls. We are like little children who are given sweets and we are excited and we forget about tomorrow. That innocent mentality should stop. Ignorance can never be used in the courts of law. You cannot be so ignorant to that level that Africans are in right now. You should ask you should ask yourself, how is this person important? Why is this person meeting these people? For what reason? You know, for me, I would think if I tell something is gonna be fine, sit, have everything said on the screen, let people hear what you are discussing. We only see pictures, them shaking hands with some certificates and receipts, and people are shaking hands. We don't see what they're discussing about. And then you think you are celebrating. You don't know what they are discussing about you. And so this, I said it last time, as we look at the situation, I know I'm not only, I'm talking about Kenya right now because of the scenarios that are going. Uganda is not so different, though Uganda is not embracing the British and the Americans. It's rather kissing the ass of the Chinese and the Russians and all that. Um, I'm concentrating on Kenya right now because I want to give it a clear, I want to give you guys a clear picture. Recently, there were, of course, agendas that were being, of course, drafted. Before even Ruto came into the picture, remember Ruto was in the government. Okay, Yalichi? Yali vice president. Yeah. He was the vice president in Kenya. Now, Ruto being a vice president in Kenya during the days of course, Kenyatta, Ruto has had the connections since then. And we saw things like, of course, United Nations, World Health Organization, are building laboratories in Kenya. All right. They wanted to build big laboratories where they can run their tests, vaccination tests, and other things. Okay. And this something we are going to see this happen during the existence of Ruto. And this is something that a lot of people don't question, don't put into question. We have seen throughout history African people being used as guinea pigs. We have seen African people being used for testing different drugs, different vaccinations, different drugs, different chemicals. They bring them around, these chemicals that have never been used before, and they put them in the African masses to see the reaction, to see how these chemicals are going to work. This has been going throughout history. And this same game was done in the United States, where the Black African women were being used as guinea pigs. There are different tests being run on them. You know, a lot of people lost their lives through this. And actually, a lot of people's genes have been sabotaged through this game. Now, if we see such kind of people, why shouldn't this act be a threat to the societies in Africa? But rather, Africans are celebrating these things. We have seen the same in South Africa. These factories, these pharmaceutical companies and factories have been built in South Africa, plus the laboratories. And we have seen what South Africa has been going through. We saw HIV coming in. We saw a lot of things coming in South Africa. All right, when they first built all those things. Right now, I'm talking about Nairobi. I'm talking about Kenya. Not because I have any biasness towards Kenya, but I know whatever is going to happen to Kenya is coming to Uganda, whether I like it or not. Because apart from the borders, these people interact. These people do trade. I can even wake up right now and tell you, I'm going to Kenya. And by morning time, I'm going to be in Kenya already. And I'm going to do business, whatever business I'm doing, and I'll come back. So I'm talking about these issues because when these people are doing all these plans, they're not only focusing on Kenya, they are focusing on the entire region. And East Africa as a whole should be threatened, should be afraid, should be scared for the actions and the deals that Ruto is signing. Because he's not only signing on the behalf of the Kenyans, but the entire East Africa and Africa at large. When South Africa signed the treaties, when South Africa welcomed pharmaceutical companies, this did not only end in South Africa, it expanded through the entire South African regions and also affected some regions in the western part. And things have never been the same there. So we know very well There is always reasons why we have these people having attention as candidates. When Ruto was contesting for presidency in Kenya, he was given a huge broadcast. He was given attention. Every mainstream BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, everybody was talking about Ruto. They were praising Ruto, talking about this dude. They even made a documentary and all bullshit stories. We always know the reason why these people are being sponsored maximally to that level. But of course, like us stupid Africans, like always, Kenyans were celebrating. Can you imagine? Al Jazeera has entire time for Ruto. Oh, yo, Kenya, can you imagine? BBC's taking the entire time on Ruto. You don't know. You don't know why they're having all this interest. And of course, whatever it is, though by the time he won, people still showed unsatisfied feeling that even I thought probably maybe we may have a coup or stuff like that sooner, because a lot of people were showing like they're not satisfied with the end results of the election. But again, of course, we know those who backed up the dude and he became the president. As soon as he swore in, he started to work for his bosses. He started to represent where he comes from. He started to represent the people behind his leadership. I don't know, what president or whatever, because the word leader shouldn't even be used when we are describing such kind of people who cannot be leader. Ay, ay, ay. Mm. Yes, Libya says all audit the previous budget before assessing new tax revenue. Uh-huh. Exactly. You just don't wake up and decide. You cannot be fooling people like that. People are making sure that they find ends meet. People are fighting tooth to nail to make sure that they live. Living in Africa is not easy. But people are being strong and they decide, all right. So it is the citizens, or it is the people in Africa who decide to give peace to the government. There is no way government is giving peace to the people. It is the people who decide and say, no, I'm letting that pass. If I can afford this, let me continue doing this. These are the sacrifices. Africans are sacrificing. They are sacrificing their peace. They are sacrificing everything they would wish for to make peace in their own countries. There is no African leader that is bringing peace. The governments in Africa is not giving us peace. We choose to live peacefully. And then Africans say, I'm not going to fight this time. I choose to let that pass. But don't think the people are fools. So now people are questioning, like, why is this so? And then you see they are wrong to question. They don't have the right to question. They don't have the mandate to question whatever it is that you're throwing out there. You wake up one time and then you just start giving people positions. You're the Minister of Finance, even when they have never studied finance, when they don't know what it means. Because you cannot come and give us a budget. We are putting prices on fuel. We are putting prices on bread. The Sukuma Wiki is going to be 3 times the price. And for those one who are using electricity, we are putting this. You are not letting people know why. Give us a strong reason why you need those things, why you need that price hiked. Explain to the world. Let people know why. Let people understand where there are taxes. Why are you imposing those taxes? Rather than telling us we are putting this certain amount of money on infrastructure, and after 6 months, we know that okay, we have put 75 billion US dollars on infrastructure, and then the next time you are telling us we have a loan from the Chinese, an infrastructure loan. But where did the money go? Because they know Africans don't follow these things. People don't even listen to the budget, they don't even know what has gone on, what is happening. And people who usually listen to these things are the business people. They want to see. They want to see where where the revenue is low. They want to study the forex. They want to understand. These are business people. Now the major people who are at the receiving end don't even have time to listen to these things. And when they listen, this is what happens. When they listen, this is what happens, the situation in Kenya. And when Africans learn to see with their third eye, when they learn to see with their minds open, we are going to see a lot of these things. Because the leaders think we don't. Yeah, people are going to say they're going to read the budget of Uganda. I bet nobody's even going to be on radio, not even on television, watching or listening to what the budget is all about. We shall only take a little time to see in the news, yeah, the budget. And of course, in the news, never in detail. They'll get some two staff to talk about the budget and all that. Oh, yeah, that was too bad. How can they have done that? When you listen, when you follow these people's data games, you can never remain the same. For a very long time, Africans have not been following the right path. They don't even care about what's going on. But I know the moment they start caring, we are going to see a lot of such kind of riots all over the continent. I told you, we don't focus on important things most of the times, and yet these important things are really, these unimportant things are really not important. There are a lot of things that are extremely important. I can tell you we have got, I don't know how many people in Uganda have medical insurance.
Not even in Kenya.
Not even in the entire Africa. Who has medical insurance? Do they even know what it is? Do they know what it means for you to have a medical insurance? Is that even important? They don't see that as an important thing until they fall sick. They don't see that as an important thing until the time comes. You see? This is what we're talking about. The mindset. People are less informed about a lot of things. The major important things in Africa are not things that we focus on. People will not even, you're talking about insurance. Someone's like, I don't even, but people should be having insurance. People should be employed, and as I'm your employee, you should give me that. I should have a medical insurance. That money should be deducted on my salary each time my salary comes. We don't have that. Just try to deduct a little bit on the price of data and see how Ugandans love TikTok. Just try to say there is no more TikTok in Uganda and see how streets are going to be banned. But tell them you don't have drugs in the hospital. Everyone's just going to look away. They forgetting tomorrow they are going to fall sick. So I should say everyone feels the vibe on something that directly affects them. And usually these things that directly, in fact, these other things that so this constantly, these have a very immediate effect on each individual. So if at all Kenyans youths took time, I don't know who gathered them together and then sat them down and ordered them to listen to the budget. I don't know who did that, but whoever did it, shut up. Oh, no, no, I don't know. Oh, don't say that. I don't know. Whoever. Maybe. I don't know, but this is why we saw a lot of people coming, of course, to say there is someone definitely behind this action, okay? Because they did not expect, because they think Africans don't have time to listen to important things, you know. Bino bawaana oli n'amufuuyi waabwe. They are trying to keep all those puppets in power. They will do whatever it takes. That people must not give up the good fight. Oh, thank you so much, Per Williams. And thank you for joining us. He also says that nothing, these devils do surprise me if you know the real history. These devils don't surprise me, I guess, if you know the real history of them. Yeah, true. True, Per Williams. Um, we are having this. First of all, I was trying to show you something, and this is not only about we the Africans in Africa. I guess this is a way of running or controlling the world, and they have controlled apparently people's mindsets. I said there are important things we should be looking at when at all we are to choose our leaders, but we don't look at those things. And whoever brings these people knows knows what we want. Okay, we shall keep on voting wrong leaders, allowing wrong leaders to compete with the better leaders until we understand who the kind of leader we want. The kind of Malema recently was talking about something that Innocent loves so much. That is about the building the houses on a flush toilet. And Innocent was asking him, so that don't these people have toilets? Why is it so important for Malema to do that? And then Keith comes in and funny enough, he starts saying, tells us a story about a South African. He said that pooped in the bucket. One time when we were on the show, and I was trying to add that dot, and I was trying to add the dose. Oh no, no, no. And I was trying to add that dot. So I was like, okay, why was it so important for Malema to talk about the flush toilets? Are we gonna build? If I become a president of South Africa, we're gonna build you a house with a kitchen. I don't know. Innocent is the one who knows how he says. How does he speak? Innocent knows how to imitate Malema. So he was talking about the kitchen, the flush toilets, and all that. And a lot of people were celebrating about this. But if you don't have food in South Africa, where are you going to get the poop? When are you going to be using that toilet? Give people the power to their land. Let them have they let them have power of accessing their land, having their own land, struggle with the economy, make sure that they have money to build these flash toilets and the bedrooms and the kitchen you're promising them. You don't need to build no kitchen for the citizens. You cannot even afford to do that for the entire population of South Africa. You can't. Give people the potential to do this. This is what we call leadership. You cannot tell me about, I'm going to make sure that toilets and whatever, flash, we're talking about too much of the flash toilets, and like South Africans always poop a lot. I don't know why he was even focusing on this. And then he's talk about the kitchen. Of course, from the kitchen, you go to the toilet. I don't know. He had his own funny ambition, missions, and all that. And a lot of people loved it. Some people were shouting out for it. But who told you that people cannot build themselves a good toilet in a house? And a house. Of course they can. Give them the potential. Give them the ability. In Africa, they say, once you give someone a mango, give the person a seed. If you give somebody a fruit, give the person a seed. Now there is someone who's going to give you a fruit for you to eat. And there is another who's going to give you a seed for you to plant that fruit and eat it until when you feel like you're done. So these are what come back to food there. So these are the things that people are really, we should learn to differentiate between puppets and leaders. Whenever you see someone having too much of Western influence, question that person's leadership. Question yourself why. Question yourself why this person is being backed up by the Western people. But rather Africans will celebrate. I told you when Bob Wine went to meet the Bill Gates and those other rich guys he met, of course, with some other American presidents, people were celebrating. Ugandans were celebrating. All of us, our man. And even other people saying, I must vote him if he's talking to Bill Gates. I must definitely vote for this dude if he's just met the Prime Minister in the United States. I must definitely. Are you stupid not to see? So people were just saying, I'm going to vote him because he met with Bill Gates. Bill Gates has been in Uganda. So Uganda didn't know dude was here, even has a GMO farm that is prohibited from entrance of other people. Bill Gates was here with his foundations. They were here in schools. Do you remember a time when Bob Wine's wife was giving out sanitary pads to different girls in schools? That which was under the Melinda Bill Gates Foundation. They were dealing a lot into ladies' things, family planning for single mothers and all that. Stupid Ugandans didn't know. They even don't know who Belinda Gates is. Can you imagine the wife of Bob Wine is sacrificing to give children in school sanitary pads? Why doesn't she give those pads nowadays? What happened? She's sacrificing to make sure women live up. She even started up an organization. She was representing Bill Gates' wife here. And we with the wife, and a lot of Ugandans don't really understand who Bill Gates is. Bayawuka. Naye before nga tebannaba kwawukana. Nga bakola projects muno mu Africa. So Ugandans didn't know that Bill Gates was here. His wife was also here. Even reached schools, met young girls, but she was behind Bobby Wine's wife. It was Bobby Wine's wife who was at the front. And they have brought she has brought the wife to one of the richest guys in the world. She's coming to meet girls in different Ugandan schools. The biggest question was, why are they coming to meet girls? People don't ask that kind of question. People don't ask such kind of questions. But this is Africa. The moment you start questioning such kind of things, we are going to see a lot of people on the street demonstrating and seeking for peace and justice. The moment we start digging deeper than what we see, the moment we start celebrating false love and friendship, we are going to see a lot of people on the streets demonstrating like the situation that is going on in Nairobi right now. But no, we don't. I don't know whether we are so greedy. I don't know whether we are so desperate and hopeless. We don't have hope. We are so desperate. I don't know if it is that desperation that is throwing us in that deep shit or this deep pit that we are in, but mm-mm. Anyway, I'll let Innocent to say something. Meanwhile, Ke Williams, GB Jabba, General Mosquito, Joby, I hope you guys are doing good, and of course, thank you for joining our live.
So when we look at, of course, when we look at the Kenya as a country has been, of course, experiencing riots. Um, but most of these riots have not, of course, riots of intention, if I may say, and even other African countries, because Kenya as a country is not the only country that is having puppets. Almost all African countries they are having puppets, and they are doing it in broad daylight. They are doing their puppet ship or puppetism in broad daylight, because when we look at Ruto recently has been in the US recently. Ruto has been in the US, and of course he had interactions with President Biden of US, the current president of US. We have seen other, of course, African presidents, other African leaders in the name of president, leading African countries, doing their partnership in broad daylight. Look at all West African countries. These are countries that have come out, of course, loudly to show the side, to show, of course, who is supporting whatever they are doing, who is behind everything, who is behind everything that happens within the country. We have seen, um, we have seen countries where we have seen protesters who are not even Africans. We have seen here African countries where we've seen protesters who are not even Africans. Who are so puppetship in Africa, in the recent years, it has not been making news because most of the Africans uh, knew nothing about the consequences or negative effects of a puppet leader. Yes, true Africans have been going through a lot: poverty, unemployment, exploiting resources without Africans, of course, getting anything about besides getting anything out of these resources. When during colonialism, we know that during colonialism, most of the colonial masters continue to put their existence in African affairs even up to now. They influence, when you look at the western part of Africa, the countries that are controlling that side, actually Russia is a new project, is a new, of course, power in the western parts of Africa. But prior, it has been the French that have been in the western part of Africa, and they could influence anything in those parts. They could influence the political, social, and economic part of course, West Africa. A lot of things have been, of course, stolen from those from West Africa. So it is the something that Ruto wanted to bring here in East Africa, because for a long time, most of the East African countries most of the East African countries have been, of course, avoiding that broad daylight puppetship from these European or, of course, Western powers. Most of the East African leaders have been preventing that direct control from these people. But Ruto gave chance to the people to realize what he is, people to go to understand what Ruto's true colors. When Ruto was in USA, I was watching, of course, a certain clip about a certain journalist from Kenya who was asking Ruto tough questions like, uh, Ruto, actually the journalist was like, President Ruto, yes, you hired a private jet to travel to the US. Yet you have been traveling. However much there were claims that the private jet route has been using for Kenya, it had, of course, issues. But the journalist was like, the cost of hiring the jet to the US was, of course, extremely expensive. And actually, it could even buy a jet, another private jet. So Ruto started answering or started giving answers to this guy angrily. He ended up saying, "Stop talking, I'm your president." That's how he ended up talking. So the guy told him that, like, where does this visit going to leave Kenya? Does this visit you have made to the US add something to the Kenya's economic, political, and of course, economic situation in of course in Kenya? Ruto could answer things Ruto could answer things in an arrogant way, like he's the boss, he's the president, stuff. Secondly, the guy also asked Ruto, um, he said that we see that you have assigned a foreign policy where you're going to where you're taking a lot of Kenyan police and soldiers to Haiti to keep peace in Haiti. Is it do we need politically, where does this of course leave Kenya? Does it make relations? Does it add something to Kenya? Because there are a lot of countries that have armies that are stronger than the Kenyan and police army to take control, because Kenya is in, of course, in Haiti on behalf of the UN. UN has a peacekeeping army. That's why it was created, to create peace. But why is it that Kenyan army, Kenyan police is taken to Haiti? Now it is in Kenya now. We yet to see how Ruto is going to, of course, to handle this situation amidst has laid down some of the taxes that had been put on different things that, which of course provoked people to strike in Kenya. But let's hope to see how he's going to handle the situation. However, a lot of people have been kidnapped by now. People are dying. A lot of people, hundreds of people have been injured in this situation. So when we look at protests, the last violent protests we had, protest or riot we had in Kenya, it was in 2007 and 18, where the Kenyan crisis was a violent political, economic, and a humanitarian crisis that erupted in Kenya after the former President Mwai Kibaki was declared the winner of the presidential election held in December 2007. So supporters of Kibachi's main opponent in that election, which was Raila Odinga, which was also an opponent to, of course, to Ruto. So it, of course, caused a lot of violent uh, riots in Kenya. So this is the second time we are seeing such big. However, we have been having in Kenya some other riots within. So, but when we look at that riot and the riot, that riot in 2007, that riot in 2007, it had in 2007, it had no big deal. It had no, of course, no big root of cause. Because if you're fighting someone has not won, where does it leave the country? So if you put someone whom you want, does it going to elevate your standards? Now people are rioting because of intention, because of course, high cost of living that is, of course, that has been intendedly put on Kenyans. So, um, so Kenya, or actually even other, of course, African countries, they are going through a lot, but they have not realized like what is what is, of course, going on, what must be done in the things that are happening, because there are a lot of policies that have been imposed, there are a lot of policies that have been put down, but they are nonsensical policies. What governments are doing today in African countries, what these puppet governments are doing, is of course to making relations with the Arabian countries, for African people to go to those countries to work as, of course, maids, to work as security guards, to work, instead of investing a lot of money in, of course, in industrialization, home industrialization in Africa, investing a lot of money in agriculture, because Africa depends on agriculture. When I was growing up, they used to tell us that agriculture is the backbone of Africa in every country. So governments have failed to invest in agriculture. Governments have failed to create industries that are going to refine African minerals so that they can be, of course, of high value at market. Rather, they are increasing taxes on food, vegetables, oil, and fuel. Because fuel, fuel transports its, even fuel transports fuel. We see that cars use fuel. Fuel determines almost everything in the country. It determines the price of everything in the country. Even the price of fuel itself is determined by fuel in a country, because fuel is transported by fuel. So if as a country, if as a leader, it's not actually, the case is not with the Ruto only, even other African leaders. Because for a long time, Africans have been so blind about things that are important, about things they should address first. People in Africa have been rioting because of silly things. Now are coming out to realize. And this generation is a different generation, and actually African presidents should know. That's why we saw a youthful, of course, president in Burkina Faso. That's why we saw a youthful president in Togo recently winning elections. So this generation is something that is different. So African presidents or African people between 50 years and above, they should understand this is a different generation. People are getting to understand African people are getting to understand everything a country does. This is a generation where I'm seeing, in Uganda, we have issues of kingdoms and kingship stuff. If at all, this is a generation where people, they don't see a king for the last 3 weeks, they demand for a king. This is the generation we are seeing today, where they spend like 2 months without seeing the president. They announce the president day. This is the generation. It's not a joking generation. If at all you're out of social media, you're out of the press for some time, let it be a leader or stuff, and they will say that you're dead. It is the generation. I've seen a lot of political leaders coming out to claim, I'm not dead. They are coming out to, of course, to say to. They are coming out to to clear the air that they are still living. This is a different generation. People should know. A generation of aware youths understand everything that goes on around. It is the generation and the people leaders should understand. This is the generation that doesn't believe so much in the history that was written by the Bazungus, the fake history that was written by the Bazungus. It is a generation that has come to realize that religion is stupid, that religion is silly. It is just making African people blind. It is a generation which has come to realize the negative impact of tribalism. Hmm? They are looking for money. They are looking for money and what to eat. People are looking for money and what to eat. People are looking for what to eat. They don't care about anything. That's why they are concerned about everything. So this is a generation which doesn't care which tribe are you, doesn't care about tribal stuff. This is a generation that has intermarried with the different tribes across Africa, which has never happened before. I remember recently we were watching a king of Uganda where one of his wives died and he was a Rwandan woman. A lot of people came out to say, how does a king come out to marry a Rwandese woman? But earlier, kings used to marry different women from different places. He even had the Banyankole, even had the Bawat. But this is a generation which doesn't care. They don't care. And people, African leaders should know. And whenever a wave comes in any area, like in the western part of Africa, we watched how coups were going on in the western part of Africa. So if at all this wave had started in, of course, in Kenya, Uganda should be safe. Ugandans are watching this. We are neighbors. Tanzanians are doing the same because the same problems apply everywhere. However, Luther has been putting this to has been making a lot of lies about a lot of things, and people wanted to or started actually rioting immediately after the elections in Kenya, but they were just giving Ruto that comfortability for a short time. This was yet to be, of course, to burst anytime, because you can't fool people. A lot of unfold promises Ruto made during election campaign. Kenyans are not stupid. Ugandans, Africans, they're not stupid. They are not stupid. When Ruto turned the left and left Uhuru Kenyatta's, of course, party, For me, I knew that actually this guy had not even claimed, had not even came out by then to say that he's going to be a president. But I knew the games he was playing is to become a president because he was in Uhuru Kenyatta's party. Because he knew Uhuru Kenyatta was not coming for presidency in the next term. And he, of course, he knew 60% of everything the government was doing. So he decided to lie the people. He decided to make people stupid. And by the way, immediately after electing this guy, he started making even some African presidents stupid. He tried to make some alliances about fake Pan-Africanism. He preached about Pan-Africanism stuff. He preached it for like 2 months. It ended. He started collaborating with anti-Pan-Africanists, and those are the Bazungus. So they told him on how issues concerning Africa and Kenya should be handled. So they taught Ruto how issues in Africa and Kenya should be handled. So he started handling them respectively according to how his bosses, his, of course, puppet masters, his Western powers, his Western power leaders were telling him to do, of course, in Kenya. So the reason why, of course, Ruto, the biggest reason he's giving why these taxes have been hiked on things, he says that they are paying a debt for the Chinese. They're paying a debt for Chinese. There is a huge debt for Chinese in Kenya. But Chinese are doing nothing. Chinese are doing nothing. They're really doing nothing. And they're doing nothing about it. And we see that when the Europeans, of course, scrambled Africa without consulting Africans, there is of course, it created artificial boundaries without due consideration of the traditional boundaries. Displaced Africans and separated language groups from each other, merged independent villages and communities, and turned African colonies into plantations and mineral mines. So this is why one ethnic group in Africa can be located in various African countries. For instance, we see that the Yoruba tribe can be found in Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, and Togo. So the San tribe can be found in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Mozambique, Swaziland, Botswana, Namibia, and Angola. So, as well as the Berber tribe can be found in Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Somali tribe, of course, can also be found in Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Kenya. So, Hutu tribe can be found in Rwanda, Burundi, DR Congo, as well as the Chewa tribe can be found in Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So, if at all African presidents, these African puppets, they can't see the evils that were done by these colonial masters, making demarcations without, of course, consulting from Africans. They can't elevate standards of living in Africa. They can't fight for the African identity, rather creating taxes the only way, creating a lot of taxes, of course, flooding Africa with the so-called investors that are exploiting African minerals without, of course, helping African countries to develop.
Did I even tell you
They
that
even
investors
develop.
don't pay tax?
They develop mining areas.
What's the difference?
Those are the places they develop. If
No,
they construct a
I'm
road,
sorry.
if they construct a road, that road, it heads to mines. A beautiful road without potholes, it heads to mines.
To facilitate whatever they are doing, that means they construct where they benefit. Tunaenda kupiga protocols. Ngono kiwa.
So, that is of course Africa, and we see that when we see that the struggling of Africa, we see that the reason is the reason, of course, to a greater extent, is the great reason behind internal conflicts and developmental crisis within African countries to date. To date, so to me, if I'm an African president, what I should do, because a lot of African history that we are seeing today, the African history that we have learned about, it wasn't written by Africans, but we see when a country has that course, the course unity that talks about the country's history. These are courses that are taken as minor courses. Get people hearing to know what is all about their countries and stuff. And African presidents, they are not caring about this. These, of course, the so-called investors, they are getting a lot of profits from the so-called, of course, African minerals and other stuffs at the expense of Africans. And to to make matters worse, when it comes to the Chinese, they even come with their own workers to Africa. No governments are talking about this. We have been seeing incidences of Chinese beating up African people, even killing some of them. But there are few courts that we have seen, of course, addressing such issues in Africa. And they are investors. They are so-called investors. They're investing in Africa. They are doing stuff in Africa, which is not even helping people. When we look at the Indians, these are people that are doing price discrimination. Is it that they are the people that are paying a lot of taxes to the government? Taxes are paid by people, and the poor people, taxes are paid by people, and the poor people, they are the people that pay taxes. When you look at health centers, hospitals in most of African countries, they don't have drugs. Drugs in hospitals are not there. Yet people pay in for these high taxes. Yet people pay for these high taxes. The situation for the hiking of taxes, it is not only in Kenya, it is also in Nigeria, it is also in Rwanda, it is also in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, it is worse. It is also in South Africa, it is also in Mozambique, it is also in Lesotho, Swatini, and other African countries, Algeria, Liberia. All African countries, they are getting this. They are being affected by the same factors from the same people. One time I was saying that even if Uganda gets another president today, even if Bobby Wine leads Uganda today, he may not change a lot of things. You may see the same things happening because the policies that we are having support that. The government policing that we are having supports corruption, embezzlement, high taxes. It is the policing that most of the African governments have poor policing. The policies that they have, they are so fake. All they have to do is to accumulate a lot of money. They invest in foreign countries. They keep their money in foreign banks. They use that money to influence, to chase people or on their, of course, lands and stuff. That's what they do with that money, those huge amounts of money they are having. So, um, when we look at, of course, Africa generally, as of course as a continent, it doesn't need prayers to see change in Africa. We just need to wake up. Like I said, this is another generation which understands everything. This is another generation which understands almost everything. What presidents do, they track their movements, they know their worth, they know where they invest their money, they know their ex-daughters, they know their fiancés. This is the generation, the social media generation. So, so, um, so a lot of actually all African, of course, however, of course, Joby told us here that they have started killing people in, of course, in Kenya. Apparently, it has been reported about 3 people have been are dead now, and of course, hundreds of people have been injured in the, of course, in the protest in Kenya. That is so sad. That is so bad that people are going to be killed instead of course, doing, of course, harmonizing with the people, understanding the situation and harmonizing with the people. People are being given tear gas. People are being, of course, I don't know what Ruto is going to tell to his, of course, to his mentors, to his, of course, to his bosses about what is happening. Actually, for the news, I've watched news, but like our CNN, Al Jazeera stuff, but I've not seen any news like Ruto is violating human rights stuff. I've not seen them on those big channels. It is these small channels within Africa that are of course giving those numbers. I know there are more people. There are even more people that have been killed. For those that are on the ground in Kenya, there are more people that have been killed because this issue is so serious. People are just from COVID. People are still having that trauma for COVID. People are still having that trauma for the floods recently. People are still homeless. Then you wake up and you announce the financial bill, which is extremely fake to the Kenyans who you think don't understand anything about the country's political and economic system. They think the youths, they are so much into sports, gaming, gambling. They think youths are not, that they are so much into social media. They are not concerned about things that, of course, that affect them directly, about things that affect them so directly. So this is a worst moment for Ruto. For Ruto, I pity him, but let me hope the situation cools down in Kenya for now.